You're listening to Becoming CEO, where we share our journeys as solo founders to becoming the CEO of seven-figure businesses.
And these are our behind-the-scenes conversations as we figure it out, and these are things that most people just aren't sharing.
What scares you the most, Greg? This is gonna be your thing. I'm gonna hit record. I'm gonna fire like the most existential question I can throw at you just right off the bat and see how you respond.
Yeah, I mean, so what's scare? I mean, there's a lot of things that scare me. Actually, no, I don't think there's a lot of things that scare me. I think, we're intending to talk about kind of self-doubt, and I think actually when I think of what area of my life I have the most doubt about, it kind of for me right now in this moment comes back to like, I'm super confident that we can hit just about any goal that we want to hit. I'm doubting, when I think of certain goals or how I want certain things to be, I'm doubting or maybe questioning well, do I really want that? And so I kind of doubt, sometimes I doubt my own vision and my own desire. Is that coming from me? Do I want those things because I want them, or is it because it's like other people are chasing those things and it seems nice? And so I kind of I feel like I'm wishy-washy on that. And I doubt myself in knowing, is this the right direction for me? That's where I find this creeping up for me the most. And when you told me you have a framework for eliminating self-doubt, I was like, speak up, my man. So everyone listening, I mean,
well, hold on now. Hold on now. Well, you went somewhere there that I wasn't expecting you to go. I think there's a lot of people that will talk about, oh, you need to know what you want and be true to yourself, and what's good for one person might not be good for another. Do you really know what's good for you? Tell you what I mean. If you had said to me 2 years ago, 3 years ago, if you'd asked me, what do you want? We talked about this last episode. Yeah. I said, I don't want to build a team. Mm-hmm. And the reasons for that, there's many reasons. I didn't see myself as a leader. I consider myself not to be a people person at the time. I didn't want the management burden.
I'd still challenge that.
I mean, yes, right. Fair, right? And I just didn't want the hassle, and I wanted to be just a little, like a marketer, copywriter, genius that just a lone wolf does his own thing. So if you'd asked me, is this vision, is this what you want? And you painted a picture of where we are today, I would have said, no, that's not for me. In retrospect, it was for me. So it's interesting because I question, I think there's the millennial subculture is follow your passion, do what's right, do what feels good. But how do you really know what's right? And how do you really know what's good and what's best for you?
Well, yeah, and that's what's kind of annoying. It's in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, do I want this? It's well, the only way to find out is to go get it. And then it's okay. And then this is the classic, the person who's super made, arguably really successful. And they're I do 50 million a year, but it's equally as good to make $500,000 and be very profitable. So it's okay to be small. It's but you only say that because you're so big.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but again, how would you know, right? I mean, I remember when people were well, how big do you want to go? I was I got to get to 20K a month. And people are you got to have bigger vision than that. I was bro, anything bigger than that just seems so unrealistic right now. And when I got to 20, I was oh, I can see 100. It was just like that. But I don't know if this is the same in that regard. But the self-doubt piece also is outside of is this really what I want? Is this I ask myself am I really that person? I see certain people that I admire, and they definitely have more discipline than me, and are firing on all cylinders. It seems all the time. Granted, obviously we only see what we see on the exterior sometimes, but sometimes I'm man, am I trying to be someone that I'm not to achieve something that I'm not designed for, or at least correctly? because I'm reading Gary Vaynerchuk's book right now, and he made a comment like, he's like, yeah, you might be a number 2. And I was like, huh? Like, he's like, you might be a number 27. You know, who knows? Like, but there's a lot of people out there trying to be this thing that they're not actually built for. And how do you know that you're built for it, I guess, unless you go after it? And so I kind of doubt, I have self-doubt around that. Like, am I the type of person that can get us to that? And or even lead others to that, right? Because I think I'm good at managing a little bit. I'm getting better at the leadership piece. I really do put a lot of trust in other people. But like, if my vision's not clear, how can I enroll people to kind of build with me, you know? And I question that about myself. And so, I mean, I alluded to vision a couple times, but I don't know if that's where you feel the self-doubt come in or if it's in another area.
Well, I think what's interesting about what you just said, though, is that, you know, you rightfully acknowledge that maybe you're not entirely bought into the direction that you're going in. I think that's very honest, and probably most people would agree with that if they're being honest with themselves. But at the same time, you are uncovering layers of self-awareness through the pursuit. Like, just look at how much in that last 60 seconds you confess to learning about yourself by pursuing it anyways.
Right. Yeah.
And the nature of goals and visions is that the goalpost will change. That's almost a guarantee. Like, your goals will change.
Yeah.
But but they'll change as your levels of self-awareness and what you believe to be right for you evolve. And that's through the pursuit.
Yeah. So how do you deal with it when you have those feelings? I mean, because obviously some people can let those feelings spiral them into, you know, being down and out and probably set them back longer than it has to be. So like, you're obviously a fairly self-aware person too. So it seems like self-awareness is a critical trait that needs to be honed and developed over time to catch that this is happening. So say we catch that, or you catch yourself in this self-doubt moment. What's the protocol? What's this framework, this checklist you run through, or what? How do you tackle it?
So for me, the foundation of everything is a single core belief that affects all other minor tangential beliefs. And that single core belief that I make it my number one job to feed this belief, to provide inputs to this belief, to strengthen this belief. It's the most important thing that I do. And it is the belief that I can do anything I want. Anything. That doesn't mean I'm going to do anything or everything, right? That means I have a choice to make in what I choose to do. But psychologists will call this self-efficacy, right? Self-efficacy, loosely defined as a belief in your own ability to accomplish and get things done, right? I think that's the muscle here. That's the most important muscle to strengthen and to flex, because if you, and I haven't achieved it by any means, it's a journey, it's a pursuit, right? But if you truly believe that you can do anything that you set your mind to, that doesn't mean that things come easy. Yeah. Doesn't mean that you just like snap your fingers and then the results emerge, right? But if you really dedicate yourself to a path, you can do anything you want. Then what happens is shiny object syndrome tends to melt away. Because what is shiny object syndrome? Where do entrepreneurs get distracted? They get distracted because they start to feel like another path is going to be easier than the one that they're on.
Or better, yeah.
Or better, or more whatever, right?
Yeah.
And my inoculation against shiny object syndrome is that the path I'm on right now and the model I'm working right now and what I'm doing right now absolutely can work, and I can make it work. Zero doubt.
Yeah, for sure.
Where I get into trouble is the when. Like, if you ask me right now, take my annual goal as an example. If you ask me, do you believe you can get there? I'm like, yeah, 100%, without a shadow of a doubt. Zero questions. And then add to that, but can you do it this year? Oh, yeah, I don't know. That's where the doubt comes. How long is it going to take? can we get there fast enough? How efficient can we be about getting there? But to answer your question, honestly, there's tactical things that I do to feed that for sure. But I see that as my number one job as an entrepreneur, as a CEO, as a leader of an organization, to fuel this belief that I can accomplish personally and therefore lead people to any goal, outcome, result that I choose. So I tell my clients pretty often that the biggest sale you're ever going to make is the sale that you make to yourself. Yeah, because if I'm sold on that, my team's going to go along for the ride.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think like to maybe add a layer to that, and this is possibly going to be an example of self-doubt in real time. but so like I believe, like you said, I like whatever I set my mind to, I'm like, I believe it's possible to get there, and I believe I'm capable of doing it. I used to have like a mantra that I said to myself, it's just like, I am capable. I am capable. I think the thing that has kind of come up is, I mean, obviously, like you said, like it's not easy, blah, blah. And depending upon what that thing is that you're saying you want and that you want to achieve, and I know that I'm capable of achieving, comes along with it, are you willing to do the things that are required of you to achieve said goal? And certain levels of goals will require certain levels of sacrifice in a lot of different areas of your life, et cetera. And I think immediately my thing is, am I willing to make certain sacrifices, or am I the type of person that maybe has the discipline to do some of those things? And becoming okay with maybe if the answer is no, I'm not. And so then I have to bring down what my goal is or my expectations to align with, what I'm willing to put in and be okay with that, especially when right next to you is the person who's willing to do more, thus equipped to hit something bigger. Can you still sit there steady and poised and not, waver on, do I want to actually go after that and make so that's where my self-doubt circle goes in. Because back to the point of you don't know until you do it. Well, I mean, if I'm not going to truly know what it feels like until I start doing those things, how does any vision work then, right? Because I don't know if I'm that type of person or I'm disciplined enough. Well, it's we'll go after it and commit to it and then tweak and make it. I don't know. That's where I think there's the key there is there are sacrifices. And sometimes I think people set goals, myself included, that I know I'm capable of, but I'm not willing to do certain things that are going to be required of me, yet I keep that as my goal, and thus I beat myself up. And it's you have to realize that if you're not willing to do certain things, you might have to bring the goal or expectation back, and more importantly, that's okay.
That's the honest to goodness conversation you have to have with yourself. I think something that you said there that's really important to highlight is, what is self-doubt, first of all, right? Because guaranteed, if you're, this is true for us, and if you're listening to this, whatever you want to achieve, somebody's done it. Oh, yeah. Like Neil Armstrong aside, right? Somebody's done the thing that you're trying to do, okay? Therefore, it's possible, right? And so self-doubt becomes a question of, well, can I do what they did? Can I achieve what they achieved? Am I like them? Am I as good as them? Am I as talented as them? Am I as capable as them? And am I, to your point, willing to do what they did and make the sacrifices that they made, which nobody talks about? And that, to me, levels the playing field. Because if you talk to somebody, let's say you want to build a $10 million business. If you talk to somebody who's built a $10 million business and they relay to you all the things that they had to overcome and all the challenges, and they would be laughing at us in our last episode talking about people leaving. Right? Because they're like, well, it's happened to me about 100 times, you amateurs. right?
Yeah.
And if they regale you with the tales of all the challenges that they face in getting to $10 million and this, that, and the other, right? Then what you realize is that this person's not terribly different from me. They've just done more stuff. They've been punched in the gut more. They've been knocked down more, and they got up. And the only question that remains is, am I willing to go through what they went through? And there's no right or wrong answer.
Yeah.
The answer might be no, and that's perfectly fair. That just means, your note about discipline is, I think, interesting because I think that just, if you look at a goal and you go, I don't have the discipline to do that, to me, that just means you don't really want it bad enough, which is fine. Because if you really wanted it, you'd find the discipline.
Well, yeah, I think a lot of people just want to want things, and they're not real with the fact that they're wanting to want it, and they actually just don't want it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I like the idea of
right
having washboard abs. I don't like the idea of just eating chicken and lettuce and going on steroids. Yeah. Like I'm not willing to do what's required to get washboard.
The number
abs.
of times I've subscribed and unsubscribed from MyFitnessPal is too high.
No, it's actually a decent example, right? Because I have a personal trainer. I'm in the gym 3-4 times a week, right? At my age, my metabolism's slowing down. Genetics probably not super helpful. I would love to have a bodybuilder's body, right? But my trainer reminds me, like, are you, well, not a bodybuilder, but a better body than the one that I have, right? But my trainer reminds me, like, those guys, they're in the gym 7 days a week, twice a day, 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour at night. All they eat is chicken, and half of them are on roids. Well, yeah, I'm not willing to do that, right? So, that's an honest moment. And I think that directly applies to a lot of our goals.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And the thing that I guess if I had to kind of think about a tactic that I've been using that has been calming me when I kind of get into these modes is, because for me, if anyone's picked up on this, like I try to triangulate. I'm like, oh, okay, like, here are 2 people or 3 people that seem to have achieved levels in certain areas that I would like to achieve. And when you kind of dissect each of them, they've all done it a different way. So how I kind of then take that to fuel me is I can do it my way. Like, I don't have to do it that one way or that one way. Like, clearly there's people achieving those things in different ways. So there's got to be a variety of ways to get there. So just keep going because I have a lot of the current ingredients. So as long as I keep going, I'm probably likely to get there, and my recipe might just look a little bit different by the time I get there. That's like
that's super interesting because
that's the thing that I keep telling myself.
Well, I think that where self-doubt also comes from, to your point, is can I do it like them? It's like, can I achieve this? This is one level, right? Another level is, can I do it the way that they did it? But who the hell said you have to do it the way they did it? Can you not? Are there not multiple pathways to the same goal? Can I not drive from Toronto to New York City 3 different ways, 4 different ways? Like there's different highways that end at the same destination. Some are longer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like my sister lives in Virginia, and we used to drive down there pretty often. And there's a short path. It's interstate driven, right? Like it's all on the I-90 and whatever, right? You guys have your terminology in the U.S. 95, and it's fast and it's boring as hell, right? And then there's a scenic route, and it's like takes you through towns, takes you through the mountains, and it's long and it's winding, and it takes longer, but it's more interesting, right?
And then if you were successful, like all the other people you admire, you just fly there in a helicopter or a jet.
No, but I think you really nailed it, right? Because, just because you can't or you're not willing to do something the way somebody else did doesn't mean you can't achieve it, the same goal, land at the same place, but do it your own way. Yeah. That's empowering.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I've actually kind of came to that. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who knows me pretty well. And like, they're like, my biggest quote unquote flaw, at least how I saw it previously, is that I look at what a lot of other people are doing because I'm genuinely curious on how other people structure certain things, which you've obviously have gathered from knowing me long enough. And forever, I've always looked at that as a flaw. And my friend was like, dude, like, turn that into a strength. Like, you now see all the different ingredients, like, make your own entree. Like,
interesting.
Pick the ones you like that work for you. And because, like, you just have to kind of hone that this isn't a negative that I'm so curious about other people's stuff. It's that you're going to use that to make your own informed decisions, knowing that a lot of these ingredients can and will work. It's which ones seem and taste good to you for your own palate, and then go. And so like I've been really, that happened kind of in October. I think I had that conversation, and like over the holidays, like as things kind of died down and I've been thinking and having conversations, like I've had less of that, like, oh man, like I just keep comparing myself. I'm like, no, I'm weaponizing myself with info that allows me to make the decision that's right for me, because it can be, well, it can look however. It doesn't have to look exactly that way. And that's, I mean, maybe back to the same thing that you tell yourself is I'm capable of doing anything. It's like, I'm capable of doing it the way that I end up doing it, is kind of the mantra.
I love this worldview around weaknesses. Like, there are no weaknesses. Every weakness that you have, to your point, can be weaponized as a strength. You don't have strength, you don't have weaknesses. You just have you. That's just how you are. Use what you got to your advantage.
Amen.
Love it. Any other notes on doubt?
I don't think so. And that's all I got at the moment. If you are feeling self-doubt, listeners, what's your 1-800 number for
1-800 self-doubt? I'm curious, maybe just to wrap this up here, like, do you have any particular rituals that you engage in to improve your belief, self-confidence?
I mean, I have rituals that I guess maybe probably play into it that I hadn't looked at as like I'm doing them for that reason, but probably like a recalibration. I mean, quick daily meditation, kind of let those thoughts flow in and out. And I'm not like crazy meditation person. Like, I don't think there's a wrong way to meditate. I use the Calm app for 5 minutes, but I don't do self-guided. I just do noise. I kind of just let those thoughts pass through, like first thing in the morning, to like let them all out. Then I do a quick journal. I use Day One. It's an app, and I love it because it shows you, obviously, once you build up the habit and the consistency, it's like 1 year ago today, this is what you wrote. And I'll often add a picture. So like I've like this morning I was looking at it, and I wrote about like being a better leader to my team this same day a year ago. And then there was a photo of me and my son, because he woke up early with me and was sitting next to me on the couch. And so I was like, man, like, I just have so much to be grateful for. And so like that, like just kind of letting out some of those feelings, not trying to make it like this fancy journal that necessarily has a principle in it every single time, is like, I just got to unleash some of these thoughts onto paper so that they don't stay in my head. But through the pictures and just the quick, this time last year has made me, I think, practice gratitude a lot more. Not to go down this rabbit hole, but like my dad's best friend just passed away from COVID. He's a week older, his best friend since high school. They went to the Navy together. The service just was the other day, and it was like a military formal, like they put the flag down, and like, I mean, I was just checking in with him this morning, and he's like, I'm pretty much in a funk. And like, but then he said, like, then I see the videos of you with the kids, and it just like makes me like so grateful that like that's not me. And I was like, man, like, the whole gratitude thing is going to carry you through some pretty dark and deep moments. And like, I think when you hear a story like that, I'm like, man, self-doubt's like the last thing I should be worrying about. Like, I got my health, I got my family's health, like my parents are still alive. Like, so just that app and that journaling process, I think, has like really reminded me to be grateful for what I have. So I think that helps a lot from a perspective outside of kind of the normal business routines. I track other things that I do. So like last year I was like, I got back into mountain biking a couple years ago. I used to race professional amateur years ago. And like, it was something I was in love with. But when I started my business, I didn't really have as much time to like be out on the saddle for 6 hours riding 50 miles because I used to race cross country. And like just recently, as you know, we've talked about, like got back on the bike and I was like, there's this app called Strava. I was like, I'm gonna see if I could put 1,000 miles on my bike last year. I'm just like, I think that's a stretch. I have no idea. I was like, if I can get out 2 times a week, and I hit like 850 something or somewhere around there. And I, for the most part, rode almost 2 days a week. And so like seeing that I have habits and consistency like that, gives me confidence in other areas. Kind of like you said earlier, like the not having the discipline. It's like, oh yeah, like I'm disciplined to get 2 rides in a week. I can do that. So if I wanted it, I'd probably just do it. And so I probably just don't want it that bad. And so I think it's like looking at just the miles that I put in, the amount of elevation that I've climbed on my bike is just like insane. I'm like, well, I've achieved a lot physically in the last 2 years, and I think that means I'm capable of other things. So kind of just reinforce from looking across parallel areas. I don't know. What about you?
I'm terrible with routines and rituals, so I don't have a whole lot. But really, I think a couple of things that you said that hit home for me. One is I'm a terrible meditator, but I'm big on mindfulness. And I think the mindfulness tool that I latch onto regularly and has been super helpful is just this idea, this notion that thoughts are temporary and they pass. They're like waves. They crash onto the shore. And we get into trouble as humans and certainly as business owners when we take every goddamn thought that enters our mind seriously.
Yeah.
Self-doubt.
Yeah. Well, then you start beating yourself up. It's like, it's okay to be angry. Like, like it's okay to be angry for a minute. Like that's human nature. Or like, your kid does something you've told them not to do a dozen times, and like you lose your cool for a hot second, you yell, or you're like, man, that wasn't me. Like, but hey, I'm a human. That's normal. Let me move on from it, versus I'm the worst parent in the world. Like, all this stuff. It's like, we got to acknowledge that, you're going to have problems. You're a living creature that goes through all of these ups and downs, and you're no less because of it.
And most of the stuff that enters your mind today, if you just let it pass and don't react to it, it'll be gone by tomorrow.
Yeah.
And
my dad used to say, don't sweat the small stuff, and it all becomes small stuff.
100%. The second thing that you said, I think that's really, really important is this notion of gratitude, especially if you're somebody who's listening to this show. Do you understand how privileged you are?
Oh my God, yeah.
Like the very idea that we have been entrusted with organizations and people and clients and employees and revenue, and we get to make decisions that are, hopefully to the benefit of all these people is a wild notion.
Yeah.
Like how lucky are we to be playing this game? And I mean, you tweeted about this morning, like, if you didn't love the game, how much harder would it be, right? And we're very fortunate to be in the game.
Very fortunate. So yeah, gratitude.
Look at me, I read all your tweets, bro.
I know you're starting to engage on the Twitters. I like it.
Trying to be cool, like all the kids these days get on Twitter.
It's the new place to be, apparently, even though it was the new place a while ago. Slap bracelets came back. Did you hear that?
Yeah, right. Well, listen, I appreciate your thoughts on self-doubt. It's been super helpful. And,
I appreciate your framework. I think that's that it's a good reminder, right? And I think, like just like you said, all the things that we covered, more often than not, if you're listening to the show, it's probably this statement will be true. It's more likely that you need to be reminded than you need to be taught. Like that's just the way it is, That's a Hormozyism right there.
Amen. Thank you, Alex.
Y'all got this. And I don't know what we're talking about next. Until next time, I'm becoming CEO.
See you then.